You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the show, and today I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox.
Hi there. How's it going?
It's been good. I was just saying before we started recording that it's been a while since we've actually been able to record an episode together. So I'm excited to get back. It's fall weather, at least where I am. I don't know about you, Amber, but we're a little chillier as it's like 70 degrees during the day, but the mornings are a little cold.
Yeah, it's getting there barely, but it slowly, right? Well, we're excited to launch another podcast, and today's podcast is powered by Cunningham Law Firm located in Phoenix, Arizona, and helping clients nationwide. The Cunningham Law Firm specializes in personal injury, wrongful death, and burn-related cases, and you can learn more by visiting cunninghamlawfirm.com, and we'll be sure to put that in the show notes as well. Excited for today's guest. Sounds like Rachel, we have another child burn survivor on the show. So I would love for you to share a little bit about her.
Yeah, so today we're welcoming on Brooke DelGaudio. Brooke is a 40-year-old nurse practitioner based in Denver, Colorado, specializing in wound care. Her passion for this work is deeply rooted in her personal experience as a burn survivor. At 18 months old, she sustained third and fourth degree burns on over 35% of her body after climbing into a sink with a faulty water temperature gauge. By the age of 10, she had undergone 25 surgeries, and these early experiences and the resilience they required continue to shape her both personally and professionally. Growing up, Brooke attended Chelly Burn Camp, where she learned to embrace her scars and begin building confidence in herself. While there are still moments of struggle, like when friends invite her for pedicures, reminding her she doesn't have toenails, or when sore feet make her wish for normal skin, she has come to accept that her scars are an integral part of her story. And outside of her professional work, Brooke volunteers with Phoenix SOAR, offering the guidance, empathy, and realistic perspective she once needed herself, and that's particularly meaningful to her. And in her free time, Brooke enjoys baking, snowboarding, and spending time with her husband and their 3-year-old. She believes in a lifelong journey of healing and embodies the message of her tattoo, "Strength is beautiful." So thank you so much, Brooke, for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, Brooke, we always like to ask our survivors to share their own story of survival and kind of the burn injury that occurred. And I know Rachel just gave us a brief intro of that, but if you don't mind today sharing with us a little bit about your burn injury.
Yeah, of course. I feel like you tell this story as a burn survivor and you have it on like replay, like especially as a kid, you're like, okay, let's go. So I was a young kid. There were 4 other kids in the house. My siblings, my little sister wasn't born yet, but there were all of us. And we were in Boulder, Colorado. It was super snowy that day. My dad had taken the only car to go substitute teach. And so my mom was, rustling around trying to get a bunch of kids ready for school. And the story's a little muddy. I think I was in my bedroom, and I crawled over to the bathroom. The water temperature gauge was broken. And my mom had said she had found me up there like before, when I asked her, in later years, and they had called the water company, and, nothing really was done. And so, she had taken me down there multiple times. And so I apparently crawled onto the toilet, onto the sink, and the faucets were like when you turn them off this way. And so I must have stepped on and, try to look at myself in the mirror because, apparently I was cute when I was that old, but, rustling around and kind of must have slipped and sat in the sink. And since the water temperature gauge was broken, I sat, like in the faucet and, not to, I will give trigger warnings if I say anything like that. But I kind of sat there for a little bit and I didn't really cry. I think I went into shock pretty quickly. And my mom found me and, obviously there was a lot going on. She said, I thought about putting you in the snow. I'm like, I'm glad you didn't. That would have been bad. And so they called the neighbor. The neighbor essentially took us to Children's at the time. And then they wanted to Flight for Life. But I always remember this story, like there were some old gentlemen who needed it more. And so they kept me there. And then I ended up staying there and pretty much, every year in elementary school during Christmas break, that was the hot spot for having surgery so that I could kind of minimize how much school I was missing. So every Christmas that I can remember, I was in, whatever surgery it was, whatever release in, like toe cast or something, getting scar grafts, getting skin grafts, getting releases. So that was, but I actually had pretty fond memories of the hospital. And I think that's a good thing because, I remember like playing Hungry, Hungry Hippo, like, cause it was always in the, like the pre-op area. And so I remember playing that all the time and, always getting presents and this and that. So as a kid, it was more of like an attention thing where, everybody was like all about you. And it was actually a fairly positive thing, and then you get older and the wheels fall off. So as a kid, I was like, this is sweet.
I totally agree because that's how I felt. And then you like become a teenager and you realize that all this attention is actually the worst thing. But no, it is crazy to think about too, because I kind of have those same memories. Like I certainly have not great memories at the hospital, but I also do have a lot of great memories there and like fun times actually going and get my surgeries, or at least before, maybe not after, but at least the day you were checking in before your surgery. That part was always fun. And the popsicles I got for breakfast. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, it was very fun. And then you actually like look back and you're like, maybe not as fun as I remember.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, we're already kind of talking about, childhood experiences and becoming a teenager and things like that. But how do you think like this burn injury really like shaped your personality growing up?
Oh my gosh. I think about, once I started going to therapy and unpacking all of this, in my 20s and 30s, I really truly believe that if I didn't have this, I think I'd be the same-ish, but I do think that it has made me really use humor to break the uncomfortability. That's not a word, but like the uncomfy feeling when you're in a social environment. It's like when people like, it makes you stronger. Like, yeah, but like it just makes you very resilient. And for me now, like in a professional setting, like in the medical setting, I have a lot of empathy, not just for, I actually get some like childhood burn survivors in my clinic, and we're not a burn clinic. And that brings me back. But when I see them, like, yeah, I obviously like have a ton of empathy for them, but even like my unhoused patients, my refugee patients, like anybody who is kind of an outlier, I guess, lack of a better word, and or like a forgotten like person, like somebody who has had to go through these struggles, anybody who has any childhood trauma, because a burn injury is trauma. I feel a lot of empathy for them. It gives me a lot of perspective. And yeah, so I mean, I think for sure I always use humor, when there's 14 residents staring at your donor sites and, the unmentionable area, and you just have to kind of be like, ha 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 ha, and, breaking that weird kind of tension, and getting to the story before people ask you, kind of addressing it first, because I just don't love confrontation. So I just kind of like, hey, let's talk about it. But like a thick skin, which is kind of funny because your scars are actually very thick, and it's not a lie though. Like when you have scars, like you really do get a thick skin for people staring at you, kids making fun of you, and you kind of have to turn into. I think you get to choose which way you go. And sometimes you kind of, shrivel up, and that's okay. And I think there's moments when I do that, but I also think there's times when you kind of like rise up and like are like a little defensive, but like have to kind of grow your personality. You have to grow your confidence in order to not let people who don't understand what's going on kind of break you down. And so, yeah, if that answers the question. A little bit.
It for sure does. Yeah, I think so we keep talking right about like unmentionable areas, right? So you have an experience with hidden burns,
Yes.
and I have the option to be able to do that as well, but I'm sure that also poses a challenge. And it resonated me well when you were talking about the pedicure part, because it didn't even occur to me, right? Like of not having toenails would be an element of like, okay, I mean, you could probably still go get a pedicure, right? And allow them to like do all of the other things up until painting your toenails. But I'm sure that does pose a challenge, because that's something that you do to bond with other, right, people. And so let's talk a little bit about hidden burns, because I think, right, it's an option whether or not you share that with someone too.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. Thanks for sharing your story too. Mine are from about a little bit over my knee down. So, percentage wise, when you grow older, that does change, but as a baby, so from the knee down, and then, donor sites, like in the groin area, on my stomach, on my back, which, those scars fade pretty well, but they're still there. So even if I decide to wear like pants and socks and shoes, let's say I'm feeling skinny, which is not happening, and I'm wearing a belly shirt, which never is going on. Like I still have scars that weren't even burn related, and having those scars, like when I went to the World Burn Congress, for example, there was an amazing breakout session, and there's one burn as a child, and then there's one hidden burns, and I noticed, I was like, wow, like every day I may or may not try to like hide my burns, but it is absolutely on my mind. Who am I going to go see? Do they know my story? How much do I want to unpack this today with a stranger? Is my confidence up? Is my anxiety up? Like these are things rolling through my brain, like when I get dressed, like who am I going to see? Do my scrubs go too high? What kind of socks do I want to wear? Like, are my legs a little bit more swollen today? Should I wear my like, it's like, it goes. And like at the World Burn Congress, I was like, it's almost like a badge of honor. And I'm like, no. Like, I'm actually part of this community. Like, I'm one of you. And so, obviously that's an internal thing. They don't do anything. It's such a lovely organization and Congress. And so, but like when you get there, you almost feel like you want to show off your burns because every day, like you're not embarrassed, but you're like thinking about them and trying to like kind of hide them. But you know that they're there. The people around you, my husband, my family knows they're there. But then, you get to places where there's other burn survivors and you're like, no, like I want to be part of this club. Like, here's my membership card. And does that make sense? So it's like, you think about it all the time. And sometimes when you're just kind of, bopping around the universe, doing your day in, day out thing, like there are times when you feel a little like, okay, I'm just like, and I hate the word normal because it's stupid, but like, like you just kind of want to be like a normal person. But then there are days where you're like, I have all this trauma, right? It's not anywhere you can see it. And it's like, do I want you to see it? And sometimes you're like, yeah, I kind of want you to see it. Maybe I do want you to ask me about my story. Like, so it is weird. It's a weird, like, mind game when you're rolling around and look normal, right? Or like typical, like everyone else. And you really have this like kind of secret that nobody even knows. Like people at work, like they'll see my legs and they'll be like, oh, like what happened? And like, you'll tell them and they're like, I had no idea. And it's like, part of me is like, that feels great. I think, I don't know. And then you tell your story and they're like, wow, like what? And so, yeah, it's weird. It's a strange thing to have burns that are not out in the universe. And I think it's beneficial, but also there's negatives to it as well. You get the choice on who and when you share that. But it's a bizarre thing to have hidden burns and like have to be the one to make the choice when to share that. Like it puts an extra level of kind of pressure on it, I think.
I feel like here in Florida, it's different because I never want to wear pants and I don't have a job where I have to, or maybe choose to, but, and I think it's like by nature now, I just don't, right? Like I just wear shorts and that's it. But I do think, in your job, right? It's different than like, I feel like sometimes I forget and then you do go out and you're like, oh, like I could get asked about it today, but, it is definitely something I still like think about every single day. And I feel like sometimes it seems maybe bigger to me than maybe other folks even realize, right? But having the choice does, right? It is different because not everybody gets that choice, right? So
1,000%.
it is a very different experience when you can hide them for sure.
Yeah. It definitely is. It is nice to have that choice. But it makes, it's like it's a different dynamic when you have that. But I do feel very lucky that I do have that choice, like to hide them if I want.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like, I think pros and cons of both situations. Like mine scars are much more visible, so I can't hide them. But at the same time, I feel like that maybe helped me almost come to terms with them quicker because you don't have a choice. You have, like, they are out on display. So it's definitely, there's pros and cons to both options. But Brooke, I wanted to talk a little bit about too what you were saying, like coming to Phoenix World Burn Congress and like you as a hidden survivor, like you feel like you don't have your membership card on display. And, obviously, like I said, my burns are visible, but I can relate to that in the sense of, I feel like my burns, I am lucky that as of right now, I don't have a lot of like the chronic health issues. I'm a pretty minimal burn when I look around at Phoenix World Burn Congress and see folks who have it way harder or had a way worse injury than me. And I also felt that like imposter syndrome the first time I went, because I was like, oh my gosh, why am I struggling with these things when I look around and these other survivors have, you know, they're still physically healing, and I'm like, my scars are healed. I'm in a good spot. And I definitely felt that same, like, oh, I do fit in, but I don't know if I fit in at the same time.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome, I use that in my job because I am just now a NP, like 2-3 years. So the imposter syndrome is real, but that's a really good way to put it in the burn community. And I think there's like this weird like politics in any group, right? And it's not like politics, but like, you know, like, yeah, there's a division, and it's weird. And we all know, like, you know, one of my good friends is like, I think 75 or 80%. And, you know, we get on, like, you know, it's not any different, right? You can see his very visual and mine not, but we connect on like a different type of level. But I absolutely agree. Like when people are in the hall and they're sharing their story, or they come up to you and like, you know, right, I have my shorts on or my dress on, just so they know, like, I'm not like there, like low key, like I'm here, we're good. But they'll come up and you're just like, yeah, it's just, you feel like it. I went to Shriners as like a teenager, and I had you could not see my scars, right? I had like this cute little outfit on. I thought it was cute. And I went in, and I, you know, up until that time, like, I don't know what I thought about my scars, but I just was in this headspace of like, oh, whatever. And then I went and saw somebody who was like 90% wheelchair, the whole thing. And I mean, that perspective alone, and when you mentioned earlier, so Chile Burn Camp is through a children's, and that's where I went as a kid. And I cannot recommend going to burn camp as a child if that happens more. It was like transformative. But even there, like, you know, some of my good friends, like, again, right, like 100% or, you know, 99. And you just see that and you're like, okay, like I'm pretty lucky, right? Like like you said, Rachel, like pretty fully functioning right now. Like I'm healed. Like I don't have any, like I'm not still healing. And it does give you like, it definitely makes you feel like, do I belong here? I know I do, but do I really? But yeah, the perspective is like really strong when you get around other burn survivors. But sometimes can make you feel a little insecure about, you know, like your trauma, I guess, for me at least.
Definitely.
I feel like being a burn survivor, though, probably gives you a bigger perspective, or allows you to be more empathetic as a healthcare professional. I do feel like, from my own experiences, and I do have a son, I feel like sometimes a lot of practitioners in general, or some of the ones I've encountered, forget to use empathy in general, right? And whether that's with burn survivors like myself, or even just as someone that understands that I'm a mom, right? Like I do feel like empathy is something that's learned. And I do think that that's something that I've seen to struggle with, both from the perspective of dealing with trauma patients, but also just young children in general, right? Do you feel like this has helped you be more empathetic in a way?
Oh, 1,000%. The gaining that perspective as a kid, and having that interaction with healthcare providers. I have had some very negative interactions as a burn survivor in the hospital. And to be completely honest, that was my motivation to become a nurse, because I can still remember the encounter as a 10-year-old on how mean this woman was. In retrospect, she was probably a really good nurse, because usually mean nurses are the best. But at the time, I really was like, it made me feel, you know, it made me feel kind of small. And I don't want to make anyone, I don't care if you are there for the teeniest, tiniest little wound, or, you know, the biggest wound. Like, I don't care what you're there for. I don't care where you live. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care about any of that. My job, like, I mean, it sounds terrible, like, is like to serve you, like as your provider, like not in a weird way, but it's like, my job is to care for you. Like, it is to make you feel safe. It is to make you feel like empowered. You know, I don't do a lot of coddling. That really comes from the burn injury, is like, I'm a little rough and ready as a provider, but my job is to like make you like a better person. And, you know, we don't have to do it like this big force thing, but like, I want to motivate you. I want you to feel safe. I want you to feel empowered to take care of yourself. And yeah, like, and that really does come from empathy. If I could not feel your stress, or at least feel bad, or, you know, sorry that you had to go through something, I would have no motivation to try to help you. Like, it's easy to just be like, okay, like, okay, we can do this. Like, if I hear you, right, I meet you where you are, I hear you, and I can internalize that, take, you know, out some of the things that need to be taken out, and then come up with a plan based on where you are that day. That really is empathy. Like, it's like, I see you where you are right now, not where you need to be, you know, where you were. But that's really like seeing somebody and understanding like their struggle. And it doesn't matter, like, if it's in the burn community, it doesn't matter, you know, if it's an unhoused person, like, it doesn't matter. And so, yeah, it absolutely has, just by people, you know, I do think empathy kind of shows empathy. And when you have providers that do show you that, it's kind of an example, but also your personal experiences absolutely shape how you see the world, how you see someone else, and how you can like basically just give them back what somebody gave to you, or what somebody didn't give to you and that you wanted. So
I think too, like, especially with nurse care, right? Like, your experience with nurses is going to make or break your experience, right? I, to this day, like, have nothing but wonderful things to say about the nurses I had with Orlando Health. And I will say, like, that shaped my experience with Orlando Health, right? Like, had it not been for the wonderful nurses, I mean, and the nurses that like went the extra mile, right? Like, braided my hair, did things that like they didn't have to do, but did because they were empathetic. I felt like and then there's this, you know, some that just understood that I was really struggling, and if I said I needed to take a break, I needed to take a break. Or like, right, like, there are small things I feel like that nurses can do that doesn't always happen, right? Because then on the flip side, I've had nursing experiences unrelated to my burn injury and post-trauma, like, that have just really treated me terribly. And I had a choice there, right? I could either speak up for myself or continue to allow, like, I know what good nurses do now because I had that experience. And so it's given me a voice, but it should be something I feel like that all nurses lead with, but unfortunately, right, it doesn't always happen. So it can make or break your experience. And I think it's definitely something that I'm sure hospitals understand, or care understands, but like, having a good nurse will change your experience.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. I was a floor nurse for, I lose track, but like 15 years, maybe a little bit more. So I absolutely have seen the, you know, good, bad, ugly, like, you know, exceptional. And, you know, it's hard because, you know, you're there for 12 hours, right? And
recognizing that's not an easy job.
Oh no, God, absolutely. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter what's going on at home. You got to leave it at the door. And, you know, I found for me, if I was having kind of like a rough day, it never, ever, ever came out on the patient. If anything, it took one grandma. I love anybody. I love old people so much, like more than anything. But it took one grandma, like, a little bit of dementia, kind of like saying something funny to like knock me out of my, funk. And, but that's the thing, like, yes, we can all agree it is not an easy job. Great. We'll put that on the table, but like you I'm saying this as a nurse, you picked it, and you gotta step up, and you have to treat the patients wherever they are, especially with a burn injury. Like that little comment, that little trauma, that will shape. I mean, look, the mean nurse, I'm like now a nurse practitioner because of like her 12 hours with me. So it's like, people don't understand, like, your impact can be good or bad, and really can like last a lifetime in a good or a bad way. Absolutely.
I'll never forget the great nurses, right? Yes. I won't remember the ones that were mediocre, but the ones that were negative, like I will remember that experience. Yes. I'll never forget. In our local hospital here in Daytona, I was left, and I think the other I wasn't the squeaky wheel, right? There's a lot of squeaky wheels in the hospital, and I wasn't the squeaky wheel. I was the kind of younger, complacent wheel that could probably handle a lot more on her own because she wasn't whining. But I'll never forget, there was a nurse that just assumed I didn't need anything because I was young, and I was left for several hours, like by myself.
Yeah.
My husband had gone home, and I remember just sitting there hysterically crying because nobody was helping me. Yeah. And like that experience will stick with me for the rest of my life, because that was worse than, like her coming in and just saying, hey, like, are you okay? Can I get you anything? And even when she did come in, she was rude, abrupt, and didn't come back. Yeah. So like, again, those experiences stick with you just as much as like the good nurses that I had at Orlando Health. And then, if anything, like I remember the feeling that I had, feeling like I was alone, and there's nothing that will make you feel more isolating than a bad nurse. So I feel like that is very important to like recognize and acknowledge that, like, yes, it's not that person's fault that you had a bad day. Yeah. And even if you're having a somewhat okay day, right, still like showing up and doing your best regardless is like, a bad nurse is going to make that person feel even worse, right? So
yeah. And the bedside manner is like, and I mean, I do try to like on the provider side, right? I try to, when a patient comes in all sorts of moody Judy, and I'm like, all right, what's happening? I'm sure you get those. Yeah. Right? You're like, what's happening here, right? And like, understanding, right? Like I understand like the patient has a bad day. That doesn't turn my day bad, right? Like, and that goes for the same, like as a healthcare provider, or even just, like a family member of a burn survivor. Like you walk in and like you're there in a caring capacity, and like that person is having a bad day. Like you don't need to add to it. We don't need to sprinkle on negativity. Like we try to like punch the negativity out and be like, all right, how can we have a better day? And right, like just meeting people where they are, that's all it takes. But like going above and beyond is always good. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a struggle. And like a burn unit it's a hard place to work. I just real quickly, I was at the World Burn Congress and met the most amazing group of women from a hospital in California. And they were like, you're a nurse, like you're a burn survivor. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, come interview. And I was like, I live in Colorado. And they're like, we don't care. And I was like, okay. And I was like feeling like, oh man, these people want me. And, as a burn survivor, I'm always looking for like, like gratification. I'm like, I always feel a little like, I'm always like wanting something, like I want somebody to be proud of me and all these things. So yeah, I go to the hospital, I interview, like I flew out there, like a whole thing. And I remember walking into the burn unit, and I was like a little nervous, right? Like a little tingly. I don't know if you guys feel like that too, but when you feel the trauma kind of creeping up a little bit, so like, and it creeps up in weird spots, but I like walk in the burn unit and I smell the smell of like the tub room. And I essentially, like, I think I helped with one patient, and I kept it together, right? I kept my composure. I was professional, right? And I went back to the hotel and I just cried and cried and cried and cried. And I was like, I was not married at the time, but I was with my boyfriend, now husband. And I was like, oh my God, this is like so terrible. Like it was like you like want to go, and like help and be like, man, I really want to like give back to everybody. And then like the realization that like, this is a little too close for comfort for me. Like, this is a little too close. Like, I want to go and I want to help. And like, I was so jazzed. I was like, oh man, like, you know, I'm going to be on the cover of this magazine, like Brooke nurse burn survivor. Like, look at this chick. And it was like, it was one shadow for 4 hours, maybe 2. And the women were so amazing. The nurses were so supportive. Everybody was, oh my God, like, you know, you feel like a celebrity, right? Like as a burn survivor in the medical profession, you just feel like this celebrity. And I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, like, it's okay to be like, I don't know if I can re-traumatize myself every day. And it was like adult burns. And I'm like, I can't even do this. God forbid I roll up on the pediatric unit. I'm like, if I saw a child, I couldn't do it. And so anyway, sorry, that was a little tangent, but I'm like, I
completely understand. I think, you asked us in the beginning if we still work right with Phoenix Society, and I love Phoenix Society more than anything, but working, and I give Rachel so many kudos, because I think for me too, it is hard to talk about it every single day, and it does hit home, right? After a while, it does hit you, and there are some really challenging days, and I do still struggle, right, talking about it, and I think like having to talk about it a lot can be very difficult, and recognizing like sometimes it's just too much, right? And sometimes I need to step away. I'll never forget the first time I went and did SOAR in the hospital, which I understand you also support. And walking back into Orlando Health, like I was ready and I wanted to do it, and I'm so glad that I did. But I do also remember like it was a lot, and I needed a minute after I had done it, right? Like I spent a couple hours there and then was like, okay, I need a minute, right? And you don't realize how much it does hit you until you like walk into that scenario. And I still enjoy doing it, but I think there's a level of like returning to your trauma can be a lot, right? And like for me, it's just like, okay, I think I've done what I've done, but I do think for me, like it's a lot every day. And so I recognize and acknowledge the fact that you were able to step away and just say, you know what, this is too much for me. Like I want to help, but I also acknowledge that sometimes it's too much emotionally for us to go through. And unfortunately, especially in the burn setting, from what I understand it, we don't always make it through, right? And so there's an extra level of like, I was lucky, but that doesn't always happen. And so there is a lot of trauma around it. And I acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you were able to say, you know, this is a lot. Because I also understand that, right? Like Rachel continues to do that every day, and bless her for that. But some of us can't, right? Some of us can't do that every day, and acknowledging that that's sometimes, you know, where you're at. And I some people can, some folks just, it's too much. And I acknowledge that for you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, I can do it when I'm at home, but every time I go to Phoenix for a burn congress, I always have a crash out at some point.
Oh, yeah. The crash out is real. You're like, I'm going to take a 5-hour nap.
Yeah.
Every year I like have some like big thing I got to do. And every year I'm like, actually, and someone else needs to do it because that session hit harder than I thought it was going to.
Yeah. Yeah. Any retreats or any in-person, I think it always hits harder than like virtual. I've been to my share of retreats, and I know my husband, like after the retreat, who has not been burned, will be like, can we go do something happy? Right? Or can we go do something that like doesn't talk about trauma? Because I think it does like set on him as well of like, this was hard hitting. It was a lot. We talked about some really heavy things.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need a minute to just be in your feelings and sit.
Yeah, it's the Congress is like, I've been to 2 of them, and then COVID. So they have like, and then work, school, baby, all the things. And
it's hard to take a baby to burn congress, and that continues to be my struggle of like my 2-year-old. You don't want my 2-year-old there. Let me tell you, like he would run you all wild. So it's hard.
3-year-old. Maybe they're twins, because my 3-year-old is
feral. That's the words I use lately to describe my son. Yeah. He's feral and like a small raccoon, like running around the house. Like you don't want my raccoon coming to World Burn Congress. I love him to death, and if he ever heard me calling a raccoon, I think he'd be insulted. But he's the cutest little raccoon ever. But he is feral at times, and so
I agree. My daughter is
so I was like, I can't see him. He'd be like climbing on the walls of Burn Congress. So nobody needs him to do that at Burn Congress.
It would be a good distraction. It would be a good distraction for you, though.
We should have like a toddler corner at World Burn Congress. I'm going to petition Rachel to start trying that. Like, right? This is where all the feral children belong.
Yes.
So
if you need a break, just come over here to hang out with the toddlers.
Here's Toddler Central. Yeah.
You know what? It'll snap you. Listen, when you try to like get a toddler ready. We're day 2 of preschool, by the way. So it's like,
bless you.
Yep. 45 minutes of put your clothes on, go potty. You would think I am asking her to solve a math equation. I'm like, ma'am, could you maybe just put your shoes on? No, because why would I want to wear my piggy pajamas and I want to watch Shrek? So why would we go to school right now? Like
I say like having a toddler has taught me the most amount of patience. Like I sometimes I'm like, okay, like we're just gonna, and then the smallest things, like can you just, but it will teach you patience and knock you back down to earth like real quick. So talk about emotionally challenging.
If we have time, I would love to talk about being a child burn survivor and a mom, and what that has felt like, but we can keep going with the questions.
I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I am a mom. I'm an adult burn survivor, but being a mom is challenging.
Yeah. So I actually, in my little notebook that my mom wrote me, on this day, blah, 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 blah. Like I was very happy she wrote that. I read it a lot. She said I was 18 months old. And then I like did the math on my birthday. And I was like, I think I was 16 months old actually. But I'm like, oh my God, Mom. I'm like, that we can have a whole episode on that relationship. But so seeing like my mom was home and I'm her daughter, so then that kind of then we go to the next generation. I have felt a lot of obvious disappointment and like sadness towards my mom, a lot of blaming because she was home, and I have felt a lot of resentment towards her. Like I most definitely have told her she has ruined my life, and multiple times. And she apologized. We like kind of, struggled through it. And I love her. We have a great, amazing relationship. And so when I got pregnant, I'm like, how is this going to translate? Because it's so multi-layered, and I'm like, okay, I want to have a better relationship with my daughter, and I have a great relationship with my mom, but it's a little muddy because of my accident.
Valid.
So I'm like, okay, how do I translate a better relationship, or like, a little healthier, not so toxic, and also how do I keep my child safe? And
That's a big one.
I will tell you, when she turned 16, 18 months old, the anxiety in my life was like, if I could have put my sweet baby Gigi in a ball, like, a bubble boy ball, and of course she's the most wild person on the planet. So she's always bumping and bruising and dive bombing off the couch. And And I'm like, of course the universe would give me the craziest woman in the world.
Absolutely. I said to my mother multiple times, what did I do as a child to deserve like feral, right? Like I know I was wild as a kid. I don't think that was me.
Yeah.
And my mom said, oh no, that was not you.
Yeah.
So valid, right?
It is so true. And so like, even now, like I thought that maybe I would have more like sympathy or empathy for my mom when I became a mom. I kind of ebb and flow. Just this morning, I was doing my daughter's hair and she fell over on her, like this far from the ground, on a like pretend makeup kit, and cut her lip. And I'm like, we weren't even doing anything. We're doing zero things. And like, she was fine. She literally, it was like hit her just right. She was this close to the ground, like slipped on her knee. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so in those moments, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like,
I understand.
Actually kind of have a little bit of sympathy for my mom. And then I don't. And then I'm like, this is a really big deal. And there were no gates up, right? Like,
and I think that's where I was going to go with you. Yeah. I can see, like, as a mom, there are times where I'm like, okay, that was an absolute accident. And but was it preventable? Right. Yes. And I will tell you that, like, just last week, my son climbed on the countertop and tried to put his fake pizza in our Ninja oven and turn it on. So fire waiting to happen, right? And I'll give you another example. A couple weeks ago, I was in New York, and sitting there at 7 o'clock in the morning, I started hearing alarms going off 7 o'clock, beep, beep, beep. I'm like, that's weird. Thinking it was just like a drill. Well, then I started smelling fire. A little boy put a bagel into a microwave and set the whole hotel on fire. So I go outside, come to find out the fire marshal lets me know that the bagel was like incinerated. So again, like, where were you? Right? Yeah. Like, questions we ask, like, as a mom, I'm like, I get it. Accidents absolutely happen, but where were you to let that bagel literally get incinerated? And right. Or where were you to not, like, I'm at the park all the time. I'm always watching parents not paying attention to their kids. It drives me absolutely crazy. So I see what you're saying as a mom. It's like, okay, there's a difference between that was an accident, right? She fell forward and hit. And I don't want to say negligence because I don't think it's the right word, but like not paying attention or not putting up the parameters. Like, we're obsessed in our house with putting, like you said, gates are in the kitchen, especially after that happened. We had like moved the gate. We're like, oh, he's okay now. And then that happened where he tried to put the fake like cloth pizza in the oven. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to set my house on fire. That's what's going to happen. And so I do agree with you. Like, as a parent, you can't be more than cautious, because if you can think about them doing it, they're probably going to do it. Right. Like, or if you've done it before, right, I can see where there's a level of like frustration with your mom of like, why didn't you demand the water heater fixed? Or why? So I get that feeling of, right. And I'm sure you love your mom to death, right? And as moms, I make so many mistakes, right? Like I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking there?
Yeah.
But I do my best to make sure that, especially because I know, and as a survivor, I think you put up those extra levels of caution, Brooke, probably, right? Like
Right.
you're like, okay, there's 3 fire extinguishers within 5
Good.
feet of the kitchen. There's a fire blanket in our drawer. Like, so there are extra things you do because and even it doesn't have to relate to fire, right? Like make sure the light sockets are like anything that could potentially be a hazard for a toddler.
Yeah.
We
And
do.
it's wild. My big thing obviously is hot water. So,
Right. I have a
the
water temperature in
uh-huh.
each of
the knobs are off the stove. We have we finally moved. On a side note, we actually did have a house fire 3 years ago. So that's a whole nother thing that kind of re-traumatizes you. But
Sure.
after that, then we are a baby. And my learned experience as a child, the knobs come off.
Yep.
No babies in the kitchen. I don't even care if my 10-year-old niece is here. Get out of the kitchen when I'm cooking.
Yep.
If we're taking something out of the oven, I never ever cook or boil water while Gigi is awake on the front stove. All boiling water, all cooking goes on the back stove because it takes 2 seconds. If my husband is making coffee in the rapid boil, if the crock pot is on, the crock pot is, but like, it's hard because it's like, it takes a second and it is a lifetime that could have been prevented. And like, who knows if this could have been prevented? Like, my mom called the water company and, I get it. People don't like working. So it's like calling the water company. Have you called your city? It's not easy to get a hold of anyone. So
no.
having someone come out and, they come out when there's a trauma and that's what happens. And, she tried her best with all the kids she had. And like, does it make me sad that happened? And like, do I hold a little resentment, like to this day? Yes. But like, as a mom, I'm like, okay, I can't change that. I can't change what happened. But like, and maybe
I can make sure it doesn't happen.
Maybe I'm a little bit of a psycho when it comes to safety. I don't care what clothes I wear. I mean, my sisters would say differently, but I don't care what clothes my kid wears as long as they're clean. I don't care if she's wild woman, right? But safety, like I do not play around with that.
No.
Because I see it happen before it does. So like we're very clear with prevention in our house. Like we live on a busy road. We have a gate up. We have like the gate goes out. Gigi knows you do not go outside by yourself. Like, maybe we're like a little overkill, but I know what negligence or, if we can pick a cuter word, but like I know what that does to me physically, emotionally, mentally, relationship. Like it is so transformative, not in a good way, not in a terrible way, but like it changes your whole life. And it's like, we can prevent that, like I'm going to do it. And you can call me crazy, but I don't care.
No, but maybe that makes me a helicopter mom. Like at the playground, I'm the one that's like got eyes and following him around. And then I'll be watching other kids like climbing on top of like a thing. And the parents are,
on their phones.
Not. I went to a park a couple months ago and this little girl came up to me and I said, "Where are your parents?" I finally said to her, "Where are your parents?" "Oh, they're in the car over there." So the parents had like let them go into the park and like, and I was like, again, maybe it's just me, but like, I don't trust anyone and I don't trust but again, like it's that I think when you've been through trauma, you understand what could happen and you always want to keep your babies safe at all times, right? So we have gone through, and even ourselves safe, right? Like after my trauma happened, Carlos is one of my best friends in the burn world. I've been out to California to meet him a couple times and Carlos was burned with a propane explosion. And after that, my husband was like, no propane. Like, we're not doing propane in the house. And so we eliminated propane altogether. And like, it stinks, right? Like, propane does operate a lot of things, but we went electric after that, right? Like, you learn something, and you've heard far too many accidents that happen with propane. Like, it could happen, we're eliminating it. And so I think that's just, you learn that you don't want anyone else in your life to experience what you've experienced, and it just unfortunately has to happen that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. But yes, being a mom, I think it adds that extra layer, right? You're worried about doing it again to yourself. And then you bring this little thing into the world, and you're like, oh God, they have no boundaries, and could set the house on fire with putting pizza in the oven, and fabric pizza in the oven. And I, like, in my mind, had never thought like that, but he sees me put his pizza in the oven. So he's like, hey Mom, why wouldn't I put this pizza in the oven? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Gates are back up, right? Like, and we,
dude, the gates stay, they will be up till she's 18. Okay. And she can all over it.
We have 6 different versions of gates. Like, we have one of our gates, our kitchen, like, is very difficult to gate off. So I was like able to find one of those, like, pull gates or whatnot. But yes, like, when you're a toddler mom, like, unfortunately, gates are your best friend. Thank gosh we don't have stairs, because I'd have gates in every corner of the house.
It's hard.
Yeah. But anyway, well, I know we are coming up on time here. So we'll always ask our guests 2 final questions before we do. This was a wonderful episode. And Rachel, I think, also has some, like, childhood burn survivor, but also, like, childhood safety. Being a mom I've always said multiple times that we've talked to different guests that are moms on here. Like, we have so many different burn survivor moms that, in this world, and that there's lots of us to connect with. So she's got a lot of resources for that as well. But my final question for you today is, what gives you hope when you're feeling heavy?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, my wild daughter, I just see how happy she is. My husband is, like, the most amazing man. And, I think when you're a burn survivor and you get into a relationship, right, the hidden burns, you decide when to say that. And his reaction when I first told him on, like, day one, was so, like, it was so, like, nonchalant and didn't care, but wasn't dismissive. Like, it didn't matter to him, like, at all. He was kind of like, okay, like it was, and it was just, that has literally translated through, like, 11 years. And honestly, like, knowing that I have somebody, like, so sweet, like, in my corner, always, like, if I have a bad day, like, I have amazing friends, like, I have an amazing best friend. I wish she lived closer, but, like, I have people, like, knowing that I have those relationships to fall back on, knowing that I get to, like, watch my daughter grow, like, I get to bake some cookies anytime I want. Like, I love baking so much, but, like, but yeah, I mean, it really, like, when I'm feeling sad, like, I'm alive, and it's a very blanket statement, but it's like, I'm alive. Like, I get to see another beautiful day. Like, I'm kind of a pessimist, so, like, I'm not, like, rainbows and sunshine all the time, but like, my grandma always said, like, who my daughter's named after, is like life really isn't worth living if you don't have something to look forward to. And it doesn't need to be like, we're going to Disneyland in a year. Like, it's like, British Baking Show is on Fridays. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to, right? Or, like, I have today off because I get to talk to you amazing ladies. Like, I get to do something, like, it's the little things, like, so really, like, it's just kind of a day in, day out, like, and sometimes, sometimes I do feel sad, and sometimes, I do feel triggered, and I kind of let myself feel the feels, especially, like, when the little burn anniversary comes up. Some years I forget about it, and some years it hits me really hard. And honestly, I kind of feel grateful. Like, look like I could be on a podcast today. That's sweet. Like I try to be thankful for the injury rather than like mad at it. And like, I do think like, I don't know if I would change it. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, but I try to be thankful when I feel sad like that. Like this makes me so much more different. You know, it makes me special. So that's not always how I think, but.
Well, and toddlers will pull you out of any bad day, right? Like my son is just as feral as he is. He's the sweetest, most adorable little one. And he says the most ridiculous things, and it brings me out of any bad day that I'm having, because knowing that I can like come home to crew snuggles right at the end of the day. So great. Well, and it's so great that you have a supportive husband. I think that's so important to have a spouse that supports you.
Well, with all of that, Brooke, it is time for our final question, which is our Phoenix Partner question today, sponsored by the Cunningham Law Firm. So their question is, what do you hope someone listening to your story feels or learns today?
I really hope that somebody, honestly, like kind of like my tattoo, I really hope that they just see strength and that like it's okay to feel the feels, but try not to get stuck in the feels, and finding like, be passionate about whatever it is. Like, I know I'm a very like intense human. So, you know, like be passionate about what you want to be passionate about. And like, yes, like you have scars emotionally and physically, but like those don't have to define you. And I know that's like very generic, but you don't need to let the scars become your personality unless you want them to. And that's cool too. But like, it's okay to like have a personality outside of your accident. And it's also okay to be in the fields and be in the community. And like, you are 1,000% like who you are supposed to be. Like if it was going to happen, it was going to happen. And like, it's, you know, it's not your fault. Things happen, accidents happen. Like, it's okay to like, it's okay to be sad, but knowing that like, this is who you're supposed to be today. Don't dwell, don't look too far in the future. Like, just be present and like, be happy that like, hey, we woke up today and it's beautiful. And humor doesn't, you know, humor helps also. So, you know, always try to find the humor in something. That's really my takeaway. So.
It definitely does.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. We're so excited to share this podcast with everyone, and we hope to see you again real soon.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.